Thank you so much. I appreciate it, everyone. Again, my name is John Bennett. I have spoken at the Grand Ely Lodge many times, but this is my very first time to the Bears Den. And so I feel honored. I come here probably at least once a year with my family, and this pool is one of their favorites in Minnesota. Had they known there was a game room here, I think we would have been up here more often. Thank you so much for coming. Thanks for being here today. And I know taking a half day or more out of your time is not an easy ask. So we appreciate it. The Ely for Ely group appreciates it. And yeah, we hope it's educational for you. You might learn about some things that you didn't know about before. You're mostly going to be hearing from my colleague, Michael Darger. Michael is program specialist with our department in the Department of Community Development. And he's been doing business retention and expansion for a long time. Would you say since the 90s, Michael? Mid-90s? Yeah. For mid-90s. And so he is a wealth of information. And likely whatever type of business retention work that we're talking about or working on with the Ely for Ely calendar over the next year, I would imagine Michael is going to be involved. My other colleague, Monica Haynes, is here as well. Monica is the director of the Bureau for Business and Economics Research at UMD. And aside from being good friends, we also do a lot of work together. So you likely will see her around the region every so often, maybe sometimes with me. But if you have big E economics questions, she is the person to talk to. So make sure you flag her down later on if you have any questions like that. So today we're going to be the overall theme for what we're talking about is community succession. And what does that mean? It means a lot of different things. It's a fairly broad term, but basically it's thinking about and taking care of what your community is going to look like down the road. Not just 5 years from now, but 10 years from now, 20 years from now, or 50 years from now. And so this aligns well with a lot of the work that we're doing with an extension around placemaking, and also this whole idea of wanting communities to understand the amount of wealth that's going to be leaving their community and trying to figure out ways to sort of harness that and use those resources and assets to do great things, things that we all know need to be done, especially after just hearing Ben Winchester talk about what he was just talking about. I'm going to kind of fly through here because we don't have time to get through everything we have here today. But thank you so much for inviting us here. I kind of went over some of this stuff earlier. We work for a land grant institution, University of Minnesota. Part of our main purpose is it's not just to teach undergraduate students at the university. We do a lot of outreach, or we do a lot of research, but we do outreach as well. So our job within our college in extension, or at least for Michael and I, our job is to think about what that research is and go out into the communities and talk to you about it. And hopefully this research helps you make better decisions locally in many different types of life, whether it's economic development, community development, social service sector, or private business, what have you. Okay. Yes, we help communities build capacity to solve problems together. And it's not about growth, it's about resilience and succession. So today I'm just gonna talk for a minute or two about how we got here. Ben Winchester stole one of my slides, and so I get to skip over that one anyway, because you've already heard it. Why communities should care about this issue and things to consider over the next year. Michael's going to take over after that, and he's going to tell you a lot more about the theme of business succession and transition. This is an area we started getting into an extension about a decade ago with some research from a now retired colleague of ours, and we've been growing our portfolio in this work, and I've been speaking about it all over the place. I did a talk here in Ely just a few years ago downstairs about that. We didn't have 105 people in the room, but it was a good conversation. So Michael's going to talk for a while about a lot of the studies that he's been involved with, He might have some other headlines of what's happening in other cities around the state, current research, and maybe some stories. Monica is going to tell you a little bit about sort of the work and the services that she provides, and maybe any other insights she has based on all of the applied research that she's done. You've probably seen more economic type reports that have been released or in the paper that have been released by Monica than any other person in the northeast part of the state. So we're really glad and lucky to have her here today. If we have time, I'm going to be passing out some sticky notes later on, and we're going to try and do a little bit of an activity when thinking about your business community. What are the things about your business community that you love, that you want to preserve? What are the things that you may want to change? And what are some of the things, the issues or local concerns that are sort of ringing true to you after you hear Michael talk about the research that he knows and understands? What are some of those changes that you think you might be able to do locally that maybe before seemed kind of pie in the sky, or a really big idea, or something that is just a big barrier to making it happen, and sort of kind of parsing that out and figuring out what are the pieces that we can control and what are the resources that our community can give to our business community to make sure that they remain strong and they are here for years to come. So, community and economic development, does anyone want to just really quickly give me an idea? What does economic development mean to you? Anyone want to take a stab? Sorry? Entrepreneurship? Okay. Anyone else? Yeah. Well, it's sustained thing. Basically, community and economic development is talking about how do communities adapt over time, and most of the time, they're not just growing. Economies just don't grow and shrink on their own. Oftentimes, it happens possibly because of some type of local scenario that's going on. But oftentimes, it's really things that are out of the community's control, maybe things that are happening at a global level. So a lot of the work that we do in Extension is helping communities sort of adapt to changes in the global environment. And that doesn't happen overnight. That takes a lot of work, particularly when it comes to business owners and other folks who are used to sort of the same way things have always been done for a long time. So every civilization and every community around the world has addressed this issue of succession at some point or another, whether it's with businesses, whether it's for family assets or estates, or whether it's for some other type of community or public good. It doesn't just happen by accident. This has been happening in civilizations for thousands of years, and our goal over the next year with Ely for Ely and the opportunity that we have to work with them over the next 12 months is to be thinking about what that history looks like and using that information to sort of move forward. Oftentimes, the communities that I work with, I've been doing this for 2 decades now. Oftentimes, they just look to the past and they try and revert to more of this legacy mindset. Well, this is the way that it's always been done, so this is how we're going to do it. And we're trying to encourage you to get more into a growth mindset and being open to doing things in different ways that maybe you hadn't considered anymore. So over the next year, we're going to be trying to think about changing from that legacy to a growth mindset and moving forward. Here's the slide that Ben talked about. I had a bunch of good stuff for you, but Ben sort of stole my thunder on that.
We're going to see that slide in the back anyways.
Yeah. Okay. So when thinking about the importance of your business community, most of us, unless you're a community economics educator or an economist or a specialist in business retention, we think about this stuff all the time. And not everybody thinks about how the importance of having the importance that your local businesses play in your community. They're not there just for the jobs that it provides. They serve a much larger purpose. for many places like Ely, these are sort of anchor points within your community. I've been coming up to Ely usually once a year since I was 6 years old, because this is where we set off before we went into the Boundary Waters. And my favorite place in Ely, where I have most of my memories, was at the Ely Steakhouse. And so when I come here now and I don't see the Ely Steakhouse, it happens. And it's really sad. But who knows, like if we start talking about this stuff and start talking about the uncomfortable truths that everyone's getting older, people are going to transition in some way or another. It's inevitable. If we can talk about it now out in the open and start thinking about what is it we need to do to make sure that this business that's currently open, that we love, remains open, because it really sort of puts an identity and a face to Ely, and it's what people remember. Again, my heart is broken every time I drive by, because this is where I played with all my cousins and my brothers and my aunts and uncles when we got back from a big trip. So business retention is not just about the bottom line, and it's not just about money. It's about keeping the backbone of your local identity. So it's also about preserving local ownership and planning transitions. As Ben said, when you lose local ownership and you bring in a Dollar Tree, you're not seeing the direct, like a big part of that direct economic impact. What you're getting from that is basically a job. And those are important, but that's not necessarily the best strategy for the community to build its own wealth. Also, when a business closes, oftentimes we in the community, we lose trust, we lose connection, and we lose a piece of history that many people shared, similar to my own. And I'm not even a local, so there's a big difference. And also just acknowledging that business transitions are community transitions. And so even though businesses are privately owned and operated most of the time, Michael will have a little bit more to talk about cooperative businesses here, but they're community transitions. And so because somebody's handing over the keys or they're closing up shop, that affects us all. And we can all be a part in sort of making sure that that things get passed along. So the silver tsunami is here. We've been using this slide for a long time now. It is here. We used to say the silver tsunami is coming, but it's not coming anymore. It's here. Business owners in Minnesota are, more than half are 55 years of age or older.
50%.
So this is a vulnerable population, and people live to be a long time now. But it's not just death. Death is not the only reason why people sell or need to get rid of their business. You talk about the 4 Ds in here at all, no. Michael? Oh, okay. Well, anyway, there's a whole bunch of reasons, and they're all important. And the public cost of the community not doing anything can be high. When private transitions fail, communities are the ones who oftentimes end up bearing the burden, whether it's an amenity that's no longer available, or a service or a good. That's the price that we pay when these failed transitions happen. So I'm just going to skip over most of this, but these are the questions that I'm going to be working with Ely for Ely on over the next year. How are business climate decisions made in Ely? Whose voices are sought out? Whose voices might be missing? And what resources do we have locally that might be able to help out with that? And oftentimes, in my experience, people generally think when you're talking about resources that you're talking about money and financing. And that's not what we're talking about. We want to identify all of the assets that you guys have, whether that's human capital, cultural capital, certainly financial, build capital, or in your infrastructure. What do you already have here that you can sort of build on? So what are the things that we haven't even thought about yet to include to sort of make this issue of business retention be a little more successful than some of the numbers that Michael's going to talk to you about here today. So Michael, I'll pass it off to you.
Okay.
Michael's he was my boss. He hired me to 2 decades ago. So if you have any complaints about me,
He's old, I'm really old.
this is the guy to blame.
Yeah, so I'm a boomer. I'm a 1960 baby, so I'm like a younger boomer. I'm in the last third of the boomers. And there's only 2 boomers left on our team in community economics. So it's happening. The wave is here. But you know what? I got 15 minutes to talk, and that's really not much time to talk about this ginormous topic that I call business succession transition. There's a lot of human living and meaning within that. So it's really the study of human psychology, economics, community economics. There's a lot there. So I'm just going to tease you a little bit. Liz and Abby were on the local host team. They said, okay, headlines. So all of our stuff that I'm going to talk about is published for free on the website. This is an article with D that you can print out if you're a paper guy like me. Here's the actual statistics for my study. Here's an article I did with the University of St. Thomas. So it's all there. And we have data dashboards and YouTube videos and all sorts of stuff because John used the word program. The program has evolved in the time that I've been in extension. I've been in extension for 25 years. And, you know, we have something we call the Connecting Businesses and Community Program. Monica does our reports. Monica's team does our research report. She just finished one for Northfield. They're finishing up the second Northfield report. That's all I'll talk about the Connecting Businesses and Community, which is a BRE business retention program. But here I'm talking about research, and research can be part of our program. But there's not really like a nice, tidy process that we have to lead a community through how to do business succession transition, because this is a mysterious topic. One thing is that businesses won't generally show up if you say I'm doing a business succession workshop. Oh no, that's confidential. That's scary. People don't need to know that I'm going to retire someday. You know, like even though they can see the gray hair and they know they have grandkids or whatever. And like John said, it's not all about old people. It's not all about death. Notice that Ben doesn't mind talking about death. Well, in the business succession space, we don't really want to talk about death because death doesn't get people to show up. So just so you know, legacy, person from Colorado yesterday said, why don't you use legacy? I said, because legacy smacks of death. And death, if we're trying to get people in a room, you can't, you know, you really can't. Ben can do it because he's got a nice platform. But anyways, I'll jump in. So, okay, John did a good job talking about this. This is statistics from Minnesota. Why is this a thing? Why is business succession and transition a thing? Because like he said, a lot of our business owners are local independent businesses. That's Target and Amazon and all that. But businesses that give the flavor, like that steakhouse, that's what gives placemaking. That's what gives meaning, right? No one really cares about going to Target, the Amazon gal who came to your door, but they care about that experience at the sauna or at the outfitter that you love in the Mountain Waters. Those are the things that give meaning, right? We want Target and Amazon. They're going to do fine. But it's these local independent. So, but this is from Gallup. You've heard of Gallup? You know, the leading institution in America by far are small business. Americans, we got a lot of anger and we got a lot of polarization right now. But one thing we agree on, Democrats and Republicans and all the rest, is small business. 70% of Americans say that small business they trust, either a lot or a great deal. And it's followed only by the military and science that have the majority of Americans. It's kind of sad. There's like 17 institutions they measure. Only 3 have the majority of Americans who really appreciate them. So, you know, we want to keep our local small businesses, right? So I was curious, and we have academic freedom. And so that's one of the things that you want some academics that work for the public sector. I know there was some snickering about academics in the hall earlier, but academics have the freedom to chase things that need to be chased, that they're curious about. And that's what I had the freedom to do here. I'm like, what is going on with this business succession? So I wanted to find out about businesses that have not transitioned. Are they aware of this thing? You know, like they're not going to get out here like this in this life. They're getting out here like this, you know, like, and what are their attitudes? What do they care about? What do they dream about? You know, what have they done to get ready? What are their advisors or actions? The readiness, and we measured both personal readiness, the human being, and then this thing over here, that the business, that readiness. If they're the same thing, then that's not transferable business, right? You have to separate the human. So that's a big change. That's a scary change, right? So we want to measure all this stuff. It's all right here, and I'll give you the links later. John's gonna have the sticky notes so you can write down the preserved change or.
Oh, nope.
Okay.
I'm switching things up.
Okay,
Michael, you have 20 more minutes.
Oh, 20 more minutes. Okay.
Yes,
All
I'm
right.
gonna
I'll try to slow
punt here.
down.
Slow down.
I'm trying up here and I was gonna get 15 minutes. Like, okay. You know, I want to come to Ely. You know, I was just in Ely in August. So, okay, we did it. And so here's some of the headlines. And you want to go into the details, they're on those articles I showed you. And we got these cool things called data dashboards, where you can actually say, I want to look at the businesses that said they really care about keeping the good jobs in the community. And you can see what they said. That's what a data dashboard allows you to interact with the data and not just accept the default data. Well, anyways, the single most important thing that people have studied this topic, laser, oops, sorry. There's my laser. Okay. The single most important thing a business can do is to write down a written plan. Sorry, I'm being redundant there. To write down their business succession and transition plan. Is a plan that's something in between your eyes, in between your ears? Yeah, maybe for you, but if you conk out, or you also go get dementia overnight, or you get run into, you know what I mean? You have to have it in paper, so it's laying around. That's the thing. That's not the only thing. That's one of many things you have to do, but that's the single most important thing that the literature, that's what we call the people who've done research and published articles, say about this topic. In Minnesota, we had a scientific sample. We went to almost 300 randomly selected businesses. So this is statistically significant data. This is data that you can actually say it's not just about those 286 men, answer the question. We can project that to the population of those 50,000 of businesses that John was just talking about, the hundreds. We have hundreds of thousands of businesses in the state, and most of them are owned by people who are Ben or my. Did you have a question? I'm using the U.S. Small Business Administration definition, which is 0 to 500. There are many definitions on it. One is 0 to 500. I measured businesses. I didn't want to talk to sole proprietors. I wanted to interview people, so I said 5 to 500. You could argue whether. Why didn't you about people with 3? Well, I just made a choice, and we bought data on 5 to 500, and so we're pretty sure that they're not as ready as they could be. But there's some good news there. There's a lot of data. I won't go into it, but you can look at it on the data dashboards, or if you like to read articles, or if you like to listen to podcasts, we have different forms of learning. So the good news is that, and I'm going to point ahead to a study that our retired colleague did, since John gave me back a little bit of time. Thank you, John. This is not something where you do it by yourself. This is a group activity. So what we found out here, and you can't see this in the back, but when we asked them about 15 different advisors, and we can just pass out. This is the actual survey. If anyone's interested, you can take a look. Pass them to people behind you. But you can see what we actually asked about. And we asked them about 15 different types of advisors. And guess who they asked the least? University and extension people. We're less than 1%. I don't take it personal. I'm doing research. We're convening people on this topic, but they don't turn to us for knowledge about business succession. But they did turn, guess what? Their spouse/partner. And that was number one, that the accountants was number one, the other business owners were number 2. But these 3 categories right here were 3 of the top 4 people they turned to are the ones that were the most significantly correlated. So on a 6-point scale, where 6 is I'm ready to a great extent, and 1 is not at all. The average was like in the mid-range, 3.6 or 3.62 or something like that. And I've got the actual data here, and this is on the website, but you can actually see the actual statistics. They're right in the middle of the range on both the business readiness and the personal readiness. But for business readiness, again, not the bot, not the human, but the business, they said they felt almost half a point more ready if they had involved their spouse, if they involved their attorney or their accountant, 0.4. If you add the 3 of them together, they move from a 3.2, we call that the intercept. That was like the default, like not very ready. They moved up to like a 4.7 or something like that. If you took those 3 things together, they moved from not very ready to, somewhat ready. So that just points to the fact that this is a do not do this by yourself type of activity. This is not the time to do a for sale by owner if you're talking real estate, and it's not the time to do a transition by owner if you're a business. So those are some headlines.
Michael, if I just jump in real quick?
Sure.
I just wanted to explain real quick. I'm changing up we're not going to do the activity later, but I handed out some yellow sticky notes while Michael is talking, and as you're thinking about this issue of business succession and transition more generally, whether it's nitty-gritty details or big picture, please write them down, and I'll be using whatever information you leave behind to help with the Ely for Ely group. So anyway, if you have any thoughts, please write them down and leave them at your table. I will collect them. Any data is appreciated, big or small. Thank you.
Good, bad, or ugly, yeah. Okay, good idea. Okay, so a few more headlines from my research, and that is the rural businesses, and we actually looked at the rurality versus urbanity. Ask Ben about that. Ben's a geek on stats. He got us the geocoding on these 300 businesses, and we found out that the rural businesses, again, statistically significantly, were more concerned about keeping their business in like that steakhouse. The rural people felt more strongly about this. Now it makes sense, right? Because if you're the only steakhouse or the only funeral home or the only pizza parlor or whatever in town and your business shuts down, you left a void. And it's not necessarily your fault, but it's more felt, right? We are in the middle of everywhere, like Ben was talking about, but some everywheres are a longer drive than me. I can go in any direction from Northeast Minneapolis and get pizza from, a whole bunch of places within 5 minutes of my house. And that wouldn't be true in more rural places. So I am biased. I believe as the Business Retention and Expansion Officer for Extension, that if you share the ownership of a business, however you do it, through a worker cooperative, employee stock ownership plan, having partners, having multiple owners, they're more likely to stay local and thrive. And the research bears that out. Because at Rutgers University, out in New Jersey, they have a center that studies employee ownership, and they found that over time, businesses that have more broad ownership, particularly employee ownership, the businesses do better and the employees do better. That makes sense, right? It's the ownership, kind of the ownership economy. George W. Bush used to talk about that. I never really liked President Bush that much, but that's something I like you live in the ownership, economy. So that's something we need to talk about, because there's not there are some people pushing employee ownership, and there's several small nonprofits pushing worker cooperatives, and there's but you just remember that selling to employees who don't become the boss. I'm not talking about the manager. You sell to your manager who's one of your employees, and then he or she becomes the owner and boss. Nothing wrong with that. That's great. But we're talking about the employees who don't become the boss, the rank and file employees. That's the kind of employee ownership we're talking about there. So that's a thing. Just so you want to know about it. That you should know about it. So for those of you golfers, I just want to say business succession and transition is kind of like a shotgun start, best ball, golf tournament, whatever. But Liz is starting on hole 13, I'm starting on 18, you're starting on hole 1, and you just go out there and I hate hole. It's got this dark leg, whatever the water. I always put it in the water. It doesn't matter, just hack your way through it. You got to get around the golf course. There's a whole bunch of things you have to do to successfully transfer a business. So just start anywhere and start hacking away. You can have your favorite holes and the holes you hate, but you gotta get to the golf course, right? So if you hate golf, sorry with that analogy. So this is another study. Dr. Harstead is not from the University of Minnesota, but she's one of my friends and colleagues through this network that John and I started over 4 years ago. And she's a researcher, and she did this study with the Center for Rural Policy and Development, which is a group that Ben referenced earlier. And she did a qualitative study. So the difference between her study and my study is that I talk to businesses looking out the front windshield. And that is okay, you need to transfer this business if you want to keep it going. So what are you thinking about how ready you are looking down the road to your potential transfer? Sarah was talking to people after they transfer the business. And I think she talked to 10 or 12. She talked to several business owners. That's all confidential. She doesn't even actually talk about those individual businesses, but she extracted all this really useful information. And she built off of my study and other studies, and it's pretty good stuff. It's worth reading. That's on their website at the, that center. And we'll give you the PowerPoint, won't we?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, yeah, I got slide coming up. Take out your cameras. I'm thinking the organizers of Ely for Leader are not just going to hog this. They're going to share it with all of you. But extension, we do that. So she had these 3 phases of business succession. She calls it business succession and sale. So everyone has different terms for this. So one is getting prepared, awareness. And so, you don't make your best decisions when you're in a rush, right? You have to get ready. And so, she says the entrepreneurial mindset can sometimes get interfere with good business succession, because the entrepreneurs move fast, they pivot, they do, you know, and like maybe they don't like a long, rigorous process. So the entrepreneurial mindset maybe won't be so good for you to do good BST, business succession transition. But you have to be intentional and you kind of have to be deliberate. And a lot of it's boring, but that's just a good planning process, right? I already talked about this, having a good team, but I like this thing. She says, she kind of really explains it well. She says, okay, you get all these advisors and some of them are talking stuff that they're disagreeing with each other. Okay, you have to know your mind, you have to know who you are, what your values are, and you have to decide because you are the leader, obviously. And then I like this, get it across the finish line. Like what, okay, Ben talked about the push and pull, right? I love that. So pulling matters. You need to have somewhere where you go on post business. And it doesn't have to be all or nothing. You don't have to be in the business one day and you're like blown up, you're out of it the next day. You can phase out. There's other ways of, you know, tapering things off. But moving forward without something, oh, I lost this thing, versus moving forward towards something. That the psychology is really important in business succession because there is going to be a void for these people who had identity and they had something to do and, you know, gave them meaning in the community. So this is very important. So before I'll just go ahead to the list slide and I'll go back.
You go ahead.
Okay.
You've got plenty of time. 10 minutes.
If you see a slide with yada, yada, yada on it, that's John's slide. He's a Seinfeld guy. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so, Liz Templin is one of our esteemed former team members, and she's the one that gets credit for starting this program, this research at Extension. And she did some really good research. Now, like Ben would say, this is not old. Is unique research she did. There's no one else who's done any research like what she did in Minnesota and North Dakota. So just because that's 2016, I mean, that's still in the Trump era right now. Sorry. it's still in our current like era or whatever. So, oh, sorry. Oops. A little spastic here. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. She found that, you know, again, it's not a time for a transition by owner. That's something I made up. Don't do a TDO. Don't, like, you know, I think in housing, like don't do a for sale by owner, a FSBO. You know, get the realtor to help you if you need it. You know, Ben said that the realtors aren't as big as they used to be. These rural businesses that she studied, again, looking out the rearview mirror, the rearview window, she talked to people who had successfully kept a business going for 3 years in deep rural places like Ely. I mean, deep rural, like places below 7,500 people. You know, that was pretty much the definition. And that they typically had 4 different people helping them to get through that. So I'll show you those in a moment, but you know, I just think that's an important point that you need some help. And here backs that up. These were the people who were most important in her study. They're different than came up in my study. My study is looking at the front windshield, first looking at the rear, and you know, they had to get financing. So the banker was number 1. Accounting is always big in this thing, you know. Previous owner, that is, I can tell you a story in a moment. Of course, the attorney, so the legal and accounting and financial stuff. But you know, where's the emotional support? It might be from some of these people, but I think you're talking about like people like this. I don't think she asked about the spouse or partner. I get that idea from some people who did business succession research in Colorado. I said to my graduate student, spouse, partner, yes, you know. So I think it would have gone higher if she'd asked about it. But again, you know, she's looking at what she studies success. So it's a different perspective. So you'd kind of see different pecking order there. So. Okay, so you know, we're not sitting on a pat hand. We have a study going on right now. And this is qualitative. So what was Ben's word that he used? Anecdata. Anecdata.
Oh.
Okay, I mean, Liz's and my data so far is pretty quantitative. That's the first time in my career, and probably the only time that I'll get to statistical significance, because we sent out thousands of letters and thousands of postcards and $3,000, no kidding, of $2 bills. Because like $2 doesn't pay for a business owner's time, but like they sent me a $2 bill. Like these guys must be serious about this. And we got, you know, like these are tricks that you play, but that's, you know, it was a good use of the taxpayer dollars because we got really good data. You know, we didn't give them. So Right now, I have a graduate student at the Humphrey School, and she did an interview today. She was supposed to do an interview yesterday, but it fell through. The interview yesterday would have been cool because it's going to talk about a person who failed to transfer their business. That's pretty important stuff. We all like to study success, but we want to learn. We learn from people who fail too, right? So I can't tell you the results of the failure interview, and I don't think I have any results from today's interview. I think it's going on right now. So stay tuned. We have an ethics panel at the U, Institutional Review Board that they're called, and they slowed us down and made sure that we weren't messing with these business owners that we're talking to. So she didn't get to get going on interviewing until like yesterday. So I don't have any stories to tell you, but we're looking for stories. If you have anyone that you know who's a business owner or was a business owner, or we're really interested in that thing about people who transferred a business from someone who looks like me to someone who doesn't look like me, because Minnesotans more and more, our economy more and more doesn't rely on people who look like me. It looks like, you know, it's people who don't look like me. I'm avoiding certain words here, but you know, difference.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can it be generational?
Yeah.
You're
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
for any kind of.
Family
success.
transfers, someone who already transferred, someone who didn't transfer, someone who failed, someone who succeeded, and we're also interested in employee ownership. So, go ahead.
You're looking for sellers or even.
Yeah, pretty much. Sellers or people who are involved in a company that needs to transfer, you know. So, this form, and if the business owner, if we select them and they finish the interview, we give a $100 gift card from Target. So, for what it's worth. Because their time is valuable. So that's good. We're excited about that. Okay, so I'll finish with some stories. So, okay, this is the person we're going to interview. I'll just let you read that. There's some pretty good stuff there. She transferred business. Love this. Anna's gonna interview this person. I'm gonna tell her to. That doesn't look like, yeah, okay. I love this. It's a process. It's not a single event. It is an event. I mean, when the legal, like, it's no longer mine, but it's yours, that's a legal thing. That's a transition. And then there's other transition stuff. But succession is a process. And so, and then this thing. Yeah, I said the emotional part earlier. There's a huge emotional aspect to this. So it just has to be said, especially for this, the person thing in the business. So now there is a Boundary Waters outfitter that I know where they're in the process of buying the business from the former owner right now. And this is confidential. By the way, if someone wants to tell a story but they don't want their name used, we can do that. But if they're willing to share their name, and like we do articles, or you know, when we publish these things on our website, they're willing to have their name. We love those stories too. But either way, they're valuable stories. So this young business owner, they're 29, and they said just a few things about, since we're here in Boundary Waters country. They said, okay, there's real risk in this business. Like wildfires can shut you down. So they had a different word for it. And I said, you need to be profitable? He said, yes, they need to be profitable, because there's times when you don't make money. You gotta be able to make it through to the times when you do make money. And you have to take a low salary for years. Most of the deals in tourism country are contract to deed. So you got to pay off this old owner, and you know, there's cash flow there, and you're at risk, and you have to do personal guarantees. It's just like any other business, you got to take the risk and roll the dice. But they were concerned that people who come into a business like, you know, a Boundary Waters outfitter who might be doing canoe business and deer hunter business and fishing, outfitting fishing trips or trapping. This person does all sorts of stuff. That they actually know about this business, that they don't come in as what we call third-party buyer, and they're lucky to be. That's, you know, they didn't think that's a good recipe, because there's so much you have to know, and there's a lot of competition. But they did emphasize that learning from the previous owner is huge. Their deals can go through in about 6 months, and typically they said it takes about 3 years. Sounds about right to me. Does that sound right to you, John? Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, I just once they get clearance from Forest Service and everything, then they can come out, but you know, confidentiality is a big thing. So with that. To wrap it, there are some, like I said, this article is St. Thomas, it's been downloaded 10,000 times, so there's some interest. And here we're back to, it's on our website. I thought I had a list of the websites. But maybe that's not on here.
So you don't need to go to Monica's side. I did want to,
There you go, there's the website. Go ahead.
Monica joined us here today and she's a great resource. Would you just please tell us
Sure.
who you are?
The slide that John put there is because I think yesterday told John I was gonna be joining. I was like, what is that? He's like, I think I'm joining you. He was not prepared for me to be part of the presentation, which is why, hence the slide. I don't really have much to add. Really, Michael, I've never actually seen this presentation, but it was very interesting, and I might have a business owner for you. Anyway, I'm Monica Haynes. I already introduced myself in the big group, UMD. I have worked with John and Michael over the years on a lot of CBC, Connecting Business and Communities projects. And so in those cases, John and Michael and their team work with the community to kind of find volunteers to go into the community and actually talk with businesses, learn about, what are the challenges facing the business community, what are the strengths and weaknesses of the community as it relates to like being a business owner and, having those resources. And then our role in that project is to actually analyze the data that comes from those interviews and surveys and kind of come up with priority projects or ideas for the community that they might consider to help improve the business climate and make business succession and transition plans for business owners. And I have seen over the years that is always one of the greatest weaknesses among small communities is that you have a lot of businesses who have not given any thought to transition or succession, don't have a written business plan, don't have a written succession plan, and it can be a real barrier and hindrance to any sort of like long-term economic growth or sustainability. So I'm basically just here to take it all in and see the speakers today, just like you. But just know that our department, BBER at UMD in Duluth, is a resource for communities, economic development, cities and towns all across Northeast Minnesota. We do data analysis, we do survey research, we do, whatever economic impact analysis, all of those types of things. So basically just here to listen and learn and meet all of you.
Well, thanks, Monica. Thanks, Michael. Over the next year, you're going to see a lot of me. I'm sorry. But I'm not so bad. I'll grow on you. But you're going to see a lot of me over the next year. And one of the issues we're going to be talking about for community succession is related to the business community. And what can we do? What can you do as Ely community members to help support that? And so we'll be talking about broad level issues such as who's at the table, who's not at the table. But then also we're going to get into the nitty gritty and hopefully have an opportunity to work with actual business owners to learn some of these tools that they need to have to successfully transition their business. Because if they successfully transition their business, it's a win for the community and it's a good way to maintain the wealth that you do have and hopefully even grow from there. So I think we're at break now.
We're at break. We're happy to answer questions or whatever. Like people feel free to leave, but like we didn't really have time for Q&A. So
You mentioned right at the beginning, business owners don't want to show up if you have like a succession workshop or something. They're maybe hesitant to actually show up to participate because they have this kind of negative or privacy concerns or whatever. So how do you initiate that conversation? How do you get them to start the process?
I am glad you brought that up because I don't think workshops and classes are, John taught a class in Cook County and a former colleague of ours taught a class in Southern Minnesota. I know Jennifer wanted to have like 40 or 50 businesses and she got 10 or 20. So she was so good. I think the answer is there's no right answer. So we have a YouTube channel that has a bunch of like 2 or 3 minute videos. And the ones about co-ops are like 3 or 4 minutes, but the point is they're short video, they're on our website, you can get to it through wherever it is, or that, you know, but that's one way where you could go to that local, like whoever the steakhouse is up today, go and say, hey, Joe, I know it's none of my business, but really like your business, like, what's your plan for succession? No, your goddamn business. Hey, Joe, can we sit down and watch this video? I got this video from Extension, and there's this guy, Lane Ross Hanson. She's got pretty cool 2.5 minute video. Can we just sit down and watch that? No, but I'll watch it. And I'll go, okay, then I'm gonna call you tomorrow after you watch. I mean, like, we want to give people opportunities to take a risk. And John Conrick at the University of St. Thomas calls it poking the bear. You know, we're in bear country. We're in the bear world. Like, you might get, you know, like, you know, they're gonna know you care. And so that's part of, I think, the solution is that this is a confidential matter and it is sensitive, but it is their business, yes, private, but it's also the community's business. So take a risk, you know, show your concern.
But what that leads to, and yeah, glad you referenced steakhouse, is that it affects the community because something will, they'll just close their doors and they'll be done. We won't even know that they were for sale, or I've always learned the best time to transition to business is while it's operation. I mean, now we're looking for somebody to come in and open a steakhouse or a restaurant.
That's right.
And they have to start from scratch when we put it right from an existing business.
It's always,
So my question to
Yeah.
you folks is this something you can help us survey, poke the bear, up and down Main Street and everywhere else? To find out what's out there. We
Yeah,
had two this
potentially, yeah.
fall, you know, we had a tourist business that just closed the door, closed out, you know?
that's what we're gonna be talking about is what is it you need from the university to help solve this problem? We've got resources and tools to be able to do that. I feel bad. It's break time, folks. Yes. Yeah. These are issues, we're gonna, if we had more time today, we could talk about these issues for an hour, and we will, coming up in the spring, I promise, because we need to hear this kind of information from you all.
And we're gonna
Thank
get,
you.
we're gonna get those case studies and publish them. So hopefully there'll be some case studies. There'll be another way of you saying, okay, that bakery, here's a story that she might be, you know, so we're gonna try to get more and more ways of helping people and knowing.
So two things, because we will have to turn this around. One is to add to your post-it, yes, preserve, change, and create, but if you just have a question or an idea or a hot topic that you love us to talk and think about, so when we get together again for media discussion and throughout the season, we can incorporate this question. So if we have a fresh question, now you want to the post, leave it with. And also know that because you signed up here, and if you said you were interested, we'll be also emailing you asking, are there more things you would like us to talk about? So there'll be ways to crowdsource our activities. So thank you guys.
Thank you so much for coming.